In the high-stakes undersea chess match of the 1960s, the Soviet Union was falling dangerously behind. The United States Navy's submarine force was undergoing a technological revolution. Their new classes of nuclear-powered attack submarines were becoming ghosts in the water, quieter, deeper diving, and more lethal than anything that had come before. For the Soviet Navy, whose primary strategic power was increasingly reliant on its own fleet of ballistic missile submarines, this was an existential crisis. Their ultimate deterrent was being stalked by a predator they could not reliably find. The problem was one of capability and quantity. The existing Soviet anti-submarine warfare, ASW ships, were a product of a different era. Their large cruisers were too valuable and too few in number to be dedicated submarine hunters. Their smaller escort ships lacked the range, the seakeeping, and the sophisticated sensors needed to track a modern nuclear submarine in the vast, stormy battleground of the North Atlantic. The Soviet fleet was a giant with a soft underbelly, a powerful surface force that was dangerously blind to the silent, invisible threat that lurked beneath the waves. This was not a theoretical weakness. It was a gaping hole in the Iron Curtain itself. Every Soviet surface action group, every amphibious landing force, and every precious ballistic missile submarine leaving port was vulnerable to ambush. In the event of war, this vulnerability could prove fatal, allowing NATO to sever the Soviet Navy's connection to the world's oceans and neutralize its nuclear deterrent before it could even be brought to bear. The Soviet High Command needed a solution, and they needed it in vast numbers. They couldn't afford to build hundreds of expensive multi-thousand-ton cruisers. They needed a dedicated ASW platform that was large enough and capable enough to be effective, but also simple and affordable enough to be mass-produced. They needed a ship that could become the new backbone of the fleet's ASW screen. They needed a Sentinel, a workhorse that could be built by the dozen to stand guard over the vast maritime frontiers of the Soviet Empire. The solution was Project 1135 Burevestnik, or Storm Petrel. Known to the West by its NATO reporting name, the Krivak Class, this new ship was not just an evolution. It was a revolution in Soviet naval design. It was the ship that would finally give the Soviet Navy the modern, mass-produced ASW screen it so desperately needed. The Krivak was a masterpiece of pragmatic, focused design. First, the power. It was one of the first major Soviet warship classes to be powered exclusively by gas turbines. This KOGAG, combined gas and gas propulsion plant, was revolutionary for its time, giving the ship a high top speed of over 32 knots and the ability to go from a cold start to full power in a matter of minutes, a critical advantage when responding to a submarine contact. Second, the senses. She was equipped with a sophisticated suite of sonars for the era, including a bow-mounted and a variable depth sonar, allowing her to hunt for submarines both near the surface and below the tricky thermal layers of the ocean. Third, the long-range punch. Her primary weapon was a powerful, quadruple launcher for the SS-N-14 Silex missile. This unique weapon was a combination of a rocket and a homing torpedo, allowing the Krivak to strike an enemy submarine from dozens of miles away, far beyond the range of her own torpedoes. This was backed up by traditional torpedo tubes and RBU 6000 anti-submarine rocket launchers. The Krivak was a dedicated hunter-killer, armed with a layered and deadly arsenal designed for one purpose: to find and destroy the quiet wolves of the deep. The proof of the Krivak's success was in its sheer numbers and its ubiquitous presence. Over 40 of these powerful frigates were built for the Soviet Navy and the KGB maritime border troops. They became the absolute backbone of the fleet,
a testament
the most
to a
numerous and
robust,
active surface
reliable,
combatants in
and
the Soviet
purposeful
inventory.
design.
Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, they were everywhere. They shadowed NATO task forces in the Mediterranean. They patrolled the Indian Ocean, and they stood sentinel in the cold, harsh waters of the North Atlantic. They became a legend not through a single, famous battle, but through decades of relentless, professional, and indispensable work. They were the ships that were always there, the first to arrive and the last to leave. Their elegant but powerful design became one of the most recognizable symbols of Soviet naval power during the height of the Cold War. But the ultimate proof of the design's excellence would come after the Cold War ended. The Krivak's robust, well-designed hull was so sound that it became the foundation for a new generation of warships. The Indian Navy, a major operator of the original Krivak class, was so impressed with the design that they commissioned a highly upgraded multi-mission version from Russia, the Talwar class. This in turn proved so successful that the Russian Navy adopted a further upgraded version for its own use, the Admiral Grigorovich class, the combat-proven backbone of the modern Black Sea Fleet.
A new anomaly has been detected.
The DNA of the 1960s-era Krivak is still alive and fighting in some of the most advanced frigates. In the world today, the legacy of the Krivak class is one of unparalleled success and influence. They were the right ship at the right time, a perfect solution to a critical problem. They were the ships that allowed the Soviet Navy to finally build a credible, deep ocean anti-submarine shield, fundamentally changing the strategic balance of the Cold War at sea. They were the unsung workhorses, the sentinels that held the line for a generation. While the massive battlecruisers and specialized destroyers captured the headlines, it was the humble Krivak-class frigates that formed the true heart of the Red Fleet's surface power. Their story is a powerful testament to the value of a robust, reliable, and purposeful design. The Krivak-class frigates were the silent guardians of the Soviet fleet, the ships that sailed into the deepest, most dangerous waters to hunt an invisible foe. Their influence extends far beyond the Cold War, living on in the modern warships that are their direct descendants. They are a true naval legend, the indispensable sentinels of the Red Fleet. Share this video to explore the fascinating story of the K